Hello viewers, welcome to Newsweek South Asia, a program that talks about breeding of terrorism and its impact on South Asian nations. Let's begin with the headlines first. Indian Prime Minister Modi slams Pakistan for breeding terrorism. Major Pakistan-backed infiltration plan foiled by Indian security forces. And United States announces further troop withdrawal from Afghanistan. Terrorism in all its forms and manifestations poses serious threats to international peace and security. India remains a consistent victim of this threat since decades. Raising this issue at 12th BRICS summit virtually, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi launched a scathing attack against those countries that are openly supporting terrorism. He also urged the international community to take the necessary steps to enhance cooperation to prevent and combat terrorism, including cross-border movement of terrorists. We have a report.
While the world is still combating the threat of COVID-19 with the hopes of having a vaccine soon, a massive threat called terrorism continues to prevail with no solution in sight. India, being one of the prime victims of this menace, has been taking up the issue of state-sponsored terrorism at various world forums for years. Slamming the terror-breeding countries at the 12th BRICS summit, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi made it clear that terrorism is the biggest international threat today, and an influential organization like the BRICS must address the issue of cross-border terrorism. Modi's remarks at the summit are being seen as an indirect hit towards Pakistan, which is a globally known sponsor of terrorism and allows terror groups to target India from its soil.
Excellencies, आतंकवाद आज विश्व के सामने सबसे बड़ी समस्या है। हमें यह सुनिश्चित करना होगा कि आतंकवादियों को समर्थन और सहायता देने वाले देशों को भी दोषी ठहराया जाए और इस समस्या का संगठित तरीके से मुकाबला किया जाए।
Pakistan's army and the ISI use terrorism as their strategic weapon against India. Recognizing this threat, international community is standing with India to prevent and fight terrorism, including cross-border movement of terrorists into India from Pakistani territory. India's relations with international community are broadening by each passing day, and the country is not only involved in planning the counter-terrorism strategies, but is also engaged in many military joint exercises with nations all over the world.
आज भारत की सेनाएं दुनिया के बड़े-बड़े देशों के साथ साझा अभ्यास कर रही है। आतंक के खिलाफ हम रणनीतिक साझेदारियां कर रहे हैं। भारत की सेनाओं ने दिखाया है कि वो आतंक के ठिकानों पर कभी भी कहीं भी स्ट्राइक कर सकते हैं।
Prime Minister Modi's statement against state-sponsored terrorism comes at a time when Pakistan's nefarious strategies against India are getting hammered at all corners of the country. Under the ongoing operations against anti-India forces, the Special Cell of Delhi Police foiled a major terror attack and nabbed 2 terrorists in the national capital. The terrorists belong to Pakistan-based terror organization Jaish-e-Mohammed, which was also responsible for the 2019 Pulwama attack in India's Jammu and Kashmir. Back in August this year, Delhi police had failed another such terror conspiracy in the city as they nabbed Abu Yusuf Khan, a terrorist associated with Islamic State of Khorasan province, while he was planting IEDs to carry out major strikes in crowded places of New Delhi.
This is what, in fact, Pakistan does every year. Every year during Indian festivals, Pakistan sends terrorists across the borders. The Indian security forces have hammered Pakistan like hell, and they have bombarded and destroyed many of the Pakistani posts. Not only that, but then the terror launch pads also have been destroyed. So this is the exact language which Pakistan understands. And Pakistan, this shows that Pakistan is not bothered about its country at all. When they are in the grey list of FATF, they still have the cheek of sending terrorists across the borders.
Pakistan's deep state, that is the army, has been indulging in malicious activities like infiltration and espionage to unleash mayhem in India. In a sophisticated world where the other countries are looking forward to establishing peace, harmony, and developing new technologies for the advancement of the world's settlement, Pakistan's state policy of terrorism is causing violence and is creating an environment of distrust in the world.
Pakistan continues to support cross-border infiltration into India. For this, its army regularly violates ceasefire agreement with India and sends terrorists from across the border to carry out attacks in India. On the eve of Diwali festival, Pakistan Army launched indiscriminate firing at the borders, killing at least 10 civilians and injuring many. Just few days later, Indian security forces eliminated at least 4 Jaish terrorists hiding in a moving truck in Jammu. Condemning Pakistan's support to terrorism, Indian Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar called for an international collaborative effort against terrorism in a recently held conclave in India.
In one of the deadliest face-off this year, Pakistan Army initiated heavy cross-border shelling on November 13 after Indian Army foiled an infiltration attempt along the line of control in the Kiran sector. The infiltration bid was foiled after the Indian troops at forward post spotted suspicious movement in the area, leading to the initiation of an unprovoked ceasefire violation from the Pakistani side. The Indian armed forces retaliated fiercely, destroying a large number of Pakistan Army bunkers, fuel dumps and launch pads. Multiple ceasefire violations by Pakistan Army from Gurez sector to Uri sector of Jammu and Kashmir led to severe casualties among innocent Kashmiri civilians and Indian security forces.
Every time that the ceasefire violation is attempted, it's also accompanied attempt for infiltration and the support by the Pakistan posts which are in this area. And Indian Army is giving a befitting reply to this desperation and the desperate act by the Pakistan Army and the terrorists. And in the counter action by the Indian Army, some of the posts were targeted and there was a precise destruction in this area.
Registering its strong protest against the indiscriminate firing at the borders by Pakistan Army, the Indian Ministry of External Affairs condemned the deliberate targeting of innocent civilians by Pakistani forces, highlighting the country's deplorable act of choosing a festive occasion in India to disrupt peace and perpetrate violence. Noting the escalation in terrorist activities from across the border, India's Minister of External Affairs S. Jaishankar indirectly slammed Islamabad for its role in supporting terrorism, calling it a particularly egregious example of state-sponsored cross-border terrorism.
As regards terrorism, the era of not my problem came to an end in 9/11. But it has still to produce a wholehearted international collaborative effort. We have, in our immediate neighborhood, a particularly egregious example of state-sponsored cross-border terrorism. The world is gradually becoming aware of the global nature of international terrorism. Our relentless efforts have kept it in the spotlight, bringing out related aspects like terror finance, radicalization, and cyber recruitment. The goal remains to reach a comprehensive convention on this subject, and we will not rest till that happens.
Despite facing backlash from all fronts, Pakistan continues to perpetrate terrorism in Jammu and Kashmir. However, its deep-rooted network of terrorism is getting thwarted all across the region. Recently, the Jammu and Kashmir police along with the CRPF eliminated 4 Jaish-e-Mohammed terrorists in a counter-terrorism operation in Jammu. The terrorists, who were hiding in a truck, were killed near the Ban toll plaza on the highway of the Union Territory.
जब चेकिंग चल रही थी तो एक ट्रक को रोका गया और जब ड्राइवर को उतारा गया तो वो वहां से फरार हो गया। शक जब हुई तो जो ट्रक था उसकी तलाशी ली गई और तलाशी के दौरान जो पुलिस और सीआरपीएफ की पार्टी थी उन पे फायर आया और जवाबी कार्रवाई शुरू की गई। धीरे धीरे और भी फोर्सेस ने ज्वाइन किया और लोकल वहां की आर्मी यूनिट ने भी हमारा साथ दिया। एनकाउंटर तकरीबन 3 घंटे तक चला, जिसपे हम पर काफ़ी भारी मात्रा में एम्युनिशन फायर किए गए, ग्रेनेड्स फेंके गए।
Hours after the terrorists were neutralized, Indian Army Chief M.M. Naravne issued clear warning to Islamabad, saying that the message was very clear for Pakistan and its terrorists that whosoever crosses the LOC to infiltrate into India would be dealt with the same manner and would not be able to go back. Experts say that it is high time for Pakistan to understand that with the change in the socio-political situations in Kashmir, it is no longer easy for them to hurt the prevailing peace and accord in the region.
One thing is very clear, that having abrogated 370 and having population having seen the improvements happening in Kashmir, certainly they do find a change, and this change is inevitable. And Pakistan will have to work doubly hard to make a dent in some manner as far as situation or peacefulness of Kashmir is concerned. Although they will keep working hard, that's a separate issue, but unfortunately it's not going well for them.
Intelligence reports suggest that with winter around the corner, close to 250 to 300 terrorists are waiting at their launch pads across the line of control. Although many infiltration attempts have been foiled this year, defense experts believe that the next few weeks would see a rise in infiltration raids and ceasefire violations.
Well, 300 of this terrorists being there in the launch pad, well, it's nothing unexpected really in this period of the year. Is the fact that it's going to be winter, and during winter when the passes close, there is infiltration. Infiltration is a little difficult at that point in time, and it's been our experience that during this period just preceding the passes closing, there's a surge in infiltration. Add to that the fact that they would like to internationalize the issue, which they have been trying for a long time without much of a success, and well, I don't see any success that's going to come up their way even now.
Scrapping of the temporary special status of Jammu and Kashmir has badly rattled Pakistan, which is desperately trying to infiltrate terrorists into Kashmir. Even as the situation in Jammu and Kashmir is returning back to normalcy, the country has intensified its efforts at increasing the strength of terrorists in launch pads along the line of control to create havoc in the region. Such consistent attempts of Pakistan at fomenting trouble and breaching harmony in an otherwise peaceful Kashmir reek of its duplicity.
Moving on, the future of Afghanistan seems to be trapped in uncertainty. While the intra-Afghan talks in Qatari capital of Doha are still underway and have so far failed to make any significant progress, the US administration is preparing for a hasty troop withdrawal from the war-torn nation. Meanwhile, Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan also visited Afghanistan. The step is being seen as a way to change the world's outlook towards Pakistan, as the country has long been held responsible for supporting the Taliban in Afghanistan.
On one side, Pakistan is pretending to play a crucial role in US Taliban deal aimed at bringing peace in the war-torn nation. On the other, it is consistently providing direct military and intelligence aid to Taliban to create unrest in Afghanistan. Instead of changing its dubious strategies, it is trying really hard to change the world's outlook towards it. Recently, Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan held talks with Afghan President Ashraf Ghani in Kabul and vowed to do everything to reduce violence in Afghanistan. However, Afghan President Ashraf Ghani indirectly hit out at Imran Khan for harboring the Taliban and said that Pakistan must be able to articulate its own words.
Mr. Prime Minister, you come with a series of very important messages that you yourself will articulate, but fundamental to this is that violence is not an answer. A comprehensive political settlement for an enduring peace within the framework of our values, our constitution in the Islamic Republic is the way to the future.
Imran Khan's visit comes days after the United States announced the reduction of thousands of US military personnel from Afghanistan by mid-January, as President Donald Trump, who is facing the end of his time in power, is pushing to accelerate the withdrawal procedure. Acting US Defense Secretary Christopher Miller confirmed that the US will sharply reduce the number of US forces in Afghanistan, stopping short of a full withdrawal from America's longest war.
In light of these tremendous sacrifices, and with great humility and gratitude to those who came before us, I am formally announcing that we will implement President Trump's orders to continue our repositioning of forces from those two countries. By January 15th, 2001, I clearly am thinking of where this started in 2001. By January 15th, 2021, our forces, their size in Afghanistan will be 2,500 troops. Our force size in Iraq will also be 2,500 by that same date. This is consistent with our established plans and strategic objectives, supported by the American people, and does not equate to a change in U.S. policy or objectives.
Analysts say that the hasty troop withdrawal from Afghanistan could plunge the war-wracked country deeper into violence. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg issued a stark warning that any premature withdrawal from Afghanistan could be dangerous. Trump's decision has also drawn criticism from some high-ranking Republicans and US military officials who have been urging Trump to keep US troops level at around 4,500 for now.
I think it's extremely important here in the next couple of months not to have any earth-shaking changes with regard to defense and foreign policy. I think a precipitous drawdown in either Afghanistan or Iraq would be a mistake. I've so said publicly yesterday, and I hope that's precisely where these discussions end up.
There is a growing fear that the premature troop withdrawal could further embolden the Taliban and weaken the already fragile peace talks. Under a February deal between the United States and the Taliban, the remaining US forces were to leave Afghanistan by May 2021 if the militants met certain conditions. However, several key US demands still remain unmet, including the Taliban's commitment to break ties with Al-Qaeda. Meanwhile, there has been a surge in violence, with the Taliban continuing to carry out attacks targeting government leaders, security forces, and civilians.
After getting pulled up at FATF plenary in October this year, Pakistan has staged a new theatrics in one of its so-called anti-terrorism court. Hafiz Saeed, the mastermind of 26/11 Mumbai attacks, has been awarded a 10-year jail term in 2 terror financing cases. Pakistan, from a long time, has been facing immense pressure to crack down on terrorist groups and entities. Saeed's arrest comes after Pakistan was sustained into the grey list of FATF for the 4th consecutive time. A report.
Mumbai terror attack mastermind and Jamaat-ud-Dawa chief Hafiz Saeed was sentenced to 10 years in jail by an anti-terrorism court in Pakistan in 2 more terror financing cases. The drama of convicting Saeed is barely a subject of surprise because Pakistan, from a very long time, is known for initiating bogus counter-terrorism operations whose sole aim is to create an aura of mendacity around the world. It is widely known that Prime Minister Imran Khan's government provides special treatment to the UN-designated terrorist. Also, the counter-terrorism department officials are treating Hafiz Saeed as a VIP and he still roams in his SUV escorted by his aides.
This is a clever ploy, a clever maneuvering on the part of Pakistan army. It is just trying to buy time. It is just trying to deflect the pressure on account of the attitude of FATF, and it is trying to create a new image that Pakistan government is seriously trying to take concrete steps against Hafiz Saeed or terrorists. This is just clever maneuvering. It has no substance.
Along with Hafiz Saeed, the court also pronounced 10.5 years imprisonment to 3 other JOD terrorists. The move can be seen as a time-buying stunt by Pakistan, which is already facing grave cash crunch and has a deadline to meet till the next FATF plenary in February 2021. If it does not show concrete steps taken against terror financing, then it will most certainly put into the blacklist of FATF, which will further push the country into serious financial crisis. This is the reason why a country which has always been hesitant in taking effective action against top terror leaders has now turned to convicting them in terror financing charges. However, this wouldn't see any change in the functioning of these terror leaders as they continue to operate freely, regardless of where they are put as a state guest.
I want to ask that what additional evidence has come? Why all of a sudden this action has been taken by Pakistan government? And when did this evidence come to the knowledge of Pakistan government? All this is time-buying technique. It is a legal battle. Now the Pakistan government will wash its hands off by saying that a legal procedure will take its own time. Overnight judgment cannot be implemented. So Hafiz Saeed will go to Supreme Court. Supreme Court will start giving dates after dates after dates. And this process will continue. By the time the pressure from FATF will decrease or likely to get mitigated.
Under pressure from the international community, Pakistani authorities have launched investigations into matters of the Jamaat-ud-Dawa, Lashkar-e-Taiba and Falai-e-Insaniyat Foundation regarding their holding and use of trust to raise funds for terrorism financing. But the investigations are merely an eyewash since no significant terror leaders have received any punishment for their heinous deeds.
If Pakistan government is really serious that it wants to give an impression that it is serious against acting against terrorists, hand over Hafiz Saeed to us. Then we will know that intention of Pakistan government. Hand over Hafiz Saeed to us. Let Hafiz Saeed face all the inquiry with regard to 26/11. That is not going to happen. So this is just a clever ploy. There is no substance.
Despite being lodged in Lahore jail, Hafiz Saeed is able to run his so-called charitable trust and madrasas because of his tall stature in Islamabad. However, with global money laundering and terror financing institutions keeping close watch on the Pakistan's terror financing activities, the government is taking pseudo steps in counter-terror financing.
And with that, we come to the end of this edition of Newsweek South Asia. We'll be back next week with more news, views and analysis from the subcontinent. Meanwhile, do keep writing to us at nwsa@anin.com. This is Shreya Savijay signing off on the behalf of entire production team of Newsweek South Asia. Goodbye and take care.